the top, actually, and that's going to be 10 watts per kilogram from him. They're not messing around here, Dave. Very interesting tactics.
Three monsters, to tell you the truth. And as a matter of fact, Nathan, you could argue three of the five, in no particular order, strongest riders in this race. So we've got ourselves a moment here on a very challenging parcours. So I have to say, Nathan, when you look at this group now, this should have the alarm bells ringing. There's no doubt if you're here to get one of the spots. Now, I guess very quickly, let's talk about it. The man who wins this race here, first of three races in this grouping, will be going to the World Championships representing his nation. There's another spot for the next race, and then we move into a reverse elimination where win and you're in. We'll have a chance to talk about that later. But right now, Ollie Jones is going to be a huge, huge threat. Nathan, it's very, very early. Obviously, we've got 26K to go in a little over 27K of racing out here. But this is a real threat. I mean, you can't just look at this as an early play, a test attack. Ollie Jones could be gone for the day, Nathan. I would not even think about betting. I'd give him 50-50 odds with the talent that he has. There's a few riders like Thomas Berry that certainly are going to need to get to work now, get that 20-pound sledgehammer out. What do you think? Can he go really basically from wire to wire out here today, Nathan?
Does Ollie just want a good workout today? I mean, this is amazing. I really like it that he's rolling the dice early on. I mean, but
how good is he?
He used it. He really is this good. He's all in, obviously, because he used his aero power up immediately. He knows he's getting one later, so.
At some point, you have to make a choice about who you are and what you want.
Ollie is just taking the spot from end to end on this race.
It looks like the Australian national team. That's the Aero jersey that we're seeing there in the classic yellow and green of Australia. The Mighty Roos. Rider now chasing back in. That's Paul Odlin. Very notable name, actually. As a matter of fact, Odlin, now let's talk about the fact if you're not winning this race, what kind of jeopardy are you in? Well, most of the riders will advance. Correct me if I'm wrong, Nathan, but I have it as 15 riders will transfer into the second race out of this group. So there's only a couple riders that'll be shown the door and not taking the next race. So that's not a huge issue for this group, because I believe every one of these guys, Nathan, will be advancing if things stay status quo. We've got a long way to go out here, but I would say that this Ollie Jones attack, it's going to now there's enough horsepower here that they can bring it back. It's not over, but it shows you how confident Ollie Jones is right now, Nathan, sitting on 10 seconds. It seems like it's stabilized there as that chase group doesn't seem to want to give him any more leash, but they're having to work to hold him there, and that's noteworthy.
I think they were just finishing the downhill. It's still a negative 3% gradient. It's about to calm on down, and they're going to finish this downhill with still 10 to 11 seconds to close, and no one's going to work for that because there's no reason. They have the Innsbruck climb, and they've got the bell lap, and Ollie's completely committed at this point. Why would this pack work together? They're just going to – I really think my prediction is Ollie just wins. I mean, he just said, look, I want to be done early today. I don't want to race any longer, and I'm strong enough to make that happen. I'm going to show you who I am. And Jones just goes up over the top of the first climb. He don't care about the descent. He just says, I'm the man here today for New Zealand, and I'm going to be on that team. And I think this is, honestly, Dave, I think this is game over because there's no motivation in this pack. The only motivation in this pack at this point now, don't be rider 17. That's it. Because there's only one rider that's not going through from this pack at this point. So just don't be rider 17 is what anyone's going to be thinking about, I think, to make sure that they get into the Innsbruck climb.
Don't be rider 17. That sounds like a T-shirt. actually. So, all right, Nathan, taking a look at Ollie Jones to set the table for you here. We're very early in the first of 3 races. We're going to have 2 riders that are going to move right into transfer to the World Championships, which is coming up in early February, the UCI Esports Worlds. It's a huge deal. 3rd time we're having that event. And right now, and actually the defending champion, Jay Vine, is an Australian, which would be, this would have been the region that Jay would have been coming out of. So as we take a look right now, Ollie here with a massive 20-second advantage now. I think, Nathan, this race might be a good time to get a cup of coffee at this point and settle in, because as far as I see it now, so riders like Thomas Berry, sure, he's really, really good. But at this point now, it's not worth it for him to chase back one rider and bring everyone along with him, knowing that he's got a good shot to win in your in concept that we've got here for the first 2 races today. I would imagine, okay, if you're Thomas Berry's director, Nathan, do you tell him to save it and race for the win in the next race, or would you?
I mean, Dave, 100%. I think that, why race anything? Why waste anything at this point to bring back 23 seconds?
Flown the coop. Yeah, I mean, totally. So this course is called Rule Mapul. That means basically loosely translates to let's go, giddy up, the wheels up. There's a lot of different ways to say let's go over in the United States, but it technically would translate to let's roll, chickens. And you can imagine that's what you hear outside of a cafe is people, the first riders that want to get going on the ride. Well, that was Ollie Jones today. He shouted out a rule my pool and rolled, and no one else, the chickens didn't quite follow fast enough because he opened up this huge gap. Thanks to Eric at Zwift Insider. I saw he just did 7 years riding on Zwift. I was reading about that the other day, Nathan. 7 years. That's about your time on Zwift, an OG. But he gave us some great insight on this course and always gives great insight. So a big thank you there as we take a look at the peloton. Nathan, they're not even in chase mode at this point. They've let him go. I mean,
no, not at all.
He's written into a different postal code.
Yeah, and Ollie, this is crazy. I mean, essentially, I think he is just stomping on these pedals. And part of the motivation, I feel like, here is almost a flex, Dave, honestly. Showing, I mean, the watts per kilogram that he is throwing down right now, and if he can do this all the way through and through, he's showing us the top level. 6 watts per kilogram plus for the duration if he can after that massive attack. I mean, maybe it's going to back down into the 5s or so for a little bit. High 5s.
He's averaging
really,
over 6, Nathan. You hit the nail on the head, Nathan.
This is insane.
He's probably averaging.
Really,
I mean, and he's making significantly more power than the chase group right now, and we're almost halfway into this race, and it's flat for quite a ways here before we hit the final Petit KOM climb. So this is a dominant performance that we're looking at, a master class being taught by Ollie Jones. Nathan, I have to say, I'm not surprised. Ollie Jones is one of the best riders on the planet. But I am surprised that he did it with this much authority. I mean, this is
really
complete
and it is.
utter.
It is. It's almost with a handicap, really, the way that he went about that because of that downhill immediately after the climb. You're essentially, it's just a smack in the face to say, I don't care about what that descent is going to do. I can not only attack the peloton, I'll attack it at the worst time you possibly could
illogical
and
place.
Still win the race.
Exactly. That's very well put, Nathan. That's a completely illogical place to attack, right? But he does, and it works, and it just shows you that he's riding at 10% higher of ability than anyone else in this field right now.
Interesting, the motivation here, a little bit kicking into the pack. Are we speaking a little bit too early? Are they going to start attacking each other? For some reason, I mean, there's one spot available up ahead. And is there a lot of motivation amongst these 16 chasers for that one spot available to put in that much work for 45 seconds? I really highly doubt it. I think that the wins are going to go out of the sails. But there's a little bit of something there over the top of the aqueduct thrown down. So now they're backing off, though, to 3-7.
Nicholas Squillari here. I have a nickname for him, Squilly the Kid. the Australian version of Billy the Kid. He's a gangster, no doubt about it. Let's see what he can do out of this group, because it's going to be really a bizarre situation in this group, Nathan, where there's only one of these riders that won't be advancing into the next event, which is the Innsbruck Hill Climb. I guess we'll get a look at that if everybody stays together here when we hit Petite KOM, a bit of an appetizer for what will be the main course coming up in Innsbruck.
Yeah, it's a good point. And we saw this on the Innsbruck climb, the Continental Hill Climb, yesterday many times. We didn't really see this bubble form of that who gets in and who doesn't on this course that many times. This is going to be a little bit different. There's going to be a single rider that's going to be battling. If this does stay together, it could come down to a group sprint, or at least a few riders sprinting together to try and make sure that they get through to the next round. That one rider that comes in last place, that elimination is going to be a tough one to deal with, Dave. And we're going to see that coming up here in just about a half a lap. So this is the situation. Ollie Jones still, I think it's going to go out over a minute here, Dave, and showing, I mean, talk about a threat when it comes to world championships. Just goes out and makes it happen. And I think a lot of people are going to be raising their eyebrows and saying, phew, this guy's the real deal. Watch out for him in any race. Do not let Ollie Jones go.
Yesterday in the women's events, we saw a few ladies making a statement. This is a big statement here coming out of Oceania and Australia. Thanks to everybody joining us on Twitch. Been a lot of fun out here as the men get their chance to qualify for the World Championships. Quickly, you see a lot of flags. Instead of trade teams, you're racing really for yourself, and your nation is who you're hoping to represent. That's why this is a big deal. Now, yesterday, I think a good example was we saw the United Kingdom. Now, I'm trying to think. It's not really the United Kingdom, is it? It's Britain. Well, when you look at the Olympics, it's relatively interesting how it all works out with Wales and Scotland, because we'll see a lot of Scottish flags and Welsh flags and English flags, but all of those athletes come together to compete to represent their nation at the Olympic Games and World Championships, and 8 of those women will be added to their national team. That's significant, Nathan, what happened yesterday. 4 Swedes did the same thing, and it looks like Australia is going to be significantly adding to their numbers at the World Championships. Not as many spots available, depending on what region of the world you're in. Allocations have been appropriately made. I thought they did a really good job with this, actually. 25 total spots will be allocated to the men and women. It's very close to the same around the globe, but for the men's case, it's 5 riders coming out of this group will qualify. 1 out of this race, 1 out of Innsbruck, and then the rest will be sorted out on the Bell Lap, a crit course, Nathan, that you know well. So I'll throw it back to you. This group is clearly racing for the spots to qualify, which means there's going to be one very disappointed rider here.
Yeah, they're keeping it extremely calm. Most of the heart rates here, I believe, are in recovery mode at this point, in the 120s to 140s tops or so. So everybody keeping it extremely chill. Over a minute now at this point. Minute 11 has gone out as Mark O'Brien takes over at the front. The names here that we've seen, these are a lot of really familiar names, though, when it comes to this portion of this region of the world. Obviously, Ollie Jones, one of the best that we have ever seen out there in the world of esports, one of the OGs of the esports world. Stevenson now making their way to the front. Harris is there as well. Tablong now is here. Trent Stevenson, Sam Hill, Nick Squilari, Mark Bosted, Hidenori Sasachi is in here, as well as Han Yun's Heng. Then it's going to be Paul Oden, as you say, Thomas Berry, Ruli Bashar, and HG Sub coming out of Korea here, riding for Arrow as well. So good to see. Oh, one did want to miss, of course, Torben, Patrick Matson, and Josh Harris. So nice. Great to see all these riders showing up on the day.
Well, to get an invite to these races, the riders had to go through a number of checks on their eligibility. That included submitting ZADA pre-verification. This includes all the riders today that are racing on smart trainers, and man, they are dialed in. The accuracy is less than 1%. That's as good as it gets with dual recording. on these races. These riders made a huge commitment to be here, and that's why you don't see the huge 80, 120 rider fields, because the scrutinization that you go through to be racing here, it's how we keep things on the up and up, and it's a huge commitment from the riders, to be honest. I have a tremendous amount of respect for what they do to keep things fair out here. It's all also notable that the in-game equipment, you'll see a lot of different bikes and setups, and the riders work hard and put a lot of pride into that. Nathan has spent like 20 million drops in his garage in the last 6 months getting new bike equipment. So believe me, it matters to these guys. But the equipment here has to be neutralized so that the same performance characteristics will be enjoyed by all of the riders out here. The power-up choices on the route as well. There is no RNG. But there is the strategy on how to use the power-ups that you get. And Nathan, based on where the power-ups are given, what's the strategy out there today with that? I mean, for Ollie Jones, it really is no never mind, is it?
Yeah, it was interesting, I think, knowing that he was going to get another arrow
we should
power
give him an
if
anvil.
he was going to be caught. Maybe that would be one of the answers out there. But I think there was a little strategy coming from Ollie Jones over the top of the King of the Mountain, because immediately using that arrow power up gave him that little bit of extra. That actually might have been the extra 5 seconds, because if he would have been within 5 seconds of that pack, I think they would have started jumping. But that arrow power up that he used over the top got him right up to speed to match, the initial speeds of that pack coming down that KOM. And I really do think that that smart use of that power-up, knowing that he could risk that because he was getting an arrow later that he could use if he was caught, it was a risk that was worth taking, and it absolutely paid off, because I don't think he would have had that 10 seconds without that tactical use of the arrow.
Staff was noting a bandage on his knee here, Nathan, that might be a liniment or a heat ointment type thing that he's using there. That's a little old school now that I think about it, but maybe just had a little crash. Good reason to stay on Zwift.
Yeah, it
Ollie.
looks might have been a outdoor. It does look a little bit like a road rash bandage, perhaps. Maybe went down on the road. Maybe we could get some.
Typically guys don't really. It's hard to say, isn't it, Nathan? What's going on there? Certainly doesn't seem to be holding him back.
No, definitely not holding him back. He's almost put 2 minutes on this pack. He's absolutely flying, for sure. Now, this brand new event format that has been designed specifically for the Continental Qualifiers, and it's here to provide a similar challenge in racing dynamics to the World Championships themselves that are going to be happening in February. For the first time ever, the World Championships are going to feature 3 back-to-back races. That's also what you're going to see today, obviously. Expected to be fast, furious, and exciting for what's on the line here. So, this format then, Dave, we've been talking about this as we've seen it develop through the women's racing yesterday, about finding your champion Zwifter, that it really does this all-around discovery through these races to find out who can kind of do just about anything but still let their talents really shine.
Yeah, it's... Right now, this is a teammate of Ollie Jones that we're looking at right now, Han Yun Zhang. Looking like he's comfortably staying in this group. He certainly doesn't look like he's at his limit here. Not chasing his teammate back, but staying well positioned in this group. I'm impressed. Riding a smart race out here. Seems to know exactly what he's doing.
Yeah.
He's got his teammate up the road. He's not chasing him back.
He went off the front just a little bit for a moment, but
at this point,
I was wondering what he was doing there.
Well, you know what, Nathan? At this point, there's really no reason to talk about chasing him back with Ollie Jones. Like, this is a whole new bike race for these guys. You might as well race this like you're in the front group. But let me put the caveat on it, because this is what's critical here is you don't need to win out of this group to advance. You just need to not be last. There's a big difference there, because you need to once again, unless you're going to win in Innsbruck, you need to make your way into that final race to sprint at the Bell Lap. So right now, it's really about helping everyone else finish what's on their plate before you tuck into your dinner. No reason to go for your main course right now.
It's a really good point. And Dave, there is, as far as a racer goes from a racing perspective, I definitely have this. You get this little anxiety in you about that last place that could happen to you, and you're like, I need to have as much wiggle room with that. I need to create as much buffer away from me as I can from that last place. And so creating a break at this point even can, be of some sort of motivation. I think that's what some of these riders are thinking is like, look, if I don't got a sprint, if I can't follow some moves at the end here, I don't even want to risk any of that right now. And that might be why we start seeing some moves toward the front of this race.
Yeah, this is the Taiwanese rider that we're looking at right now. And here we go. He's going to hit out on his own. I have to admit, and that's what I love about Zwift, is it seems like every week we meet.
I think we just had a quick little technical difficulty there from Dave, but I believe he was just about to say that that rider is from Taiwan, and it's great to see that this is something that we get to pick up on as the entire world can jump out on Zwift and represent their country. Dave, I think you were just saying how great it is to have Taiwan guys here in the world of Zwift racing.
Yeah. No, completely, Nathan. I've been very, very impressed by some of the representation that we're seeing from nations like Taiwan. And this is a big ride that we're looking at here from the Canyon team. So to get a couple riders on their trade team into the World Championships would be fantastic. I mean, but we still got a way to go for Han Yun Zhang. His teammate Ollie Jones in tremendous shape. He's over 2 minutes up right now. So that ship has sailed, Nathan.
Yeah, absolutely. And I really think any moves here at this point are really just to make sure that they don't have to deal with any anxiety with last place as they make their way through out here on the rest of Rule Ma Pool. The Marina is going to be the next thing they're going to see. They're definitely taking this on a little faster, though, than what we saw yesterday. We saw a lot of track stand type racing, holding hands a little bit yesterday because of reserving energy. I feel like this pack has gone a little bit quicker because of the motivation that's been put in by Ollie Jones. And up front, interesting enough, with the way that they took on that first climb. And also, just the speeds have been just a tad bit higher rolling through these flats.
Yeah. When you look at it now, Nathan, I agree with you. I want to go back to what you were talking about a couple of minutes ago about anxiety. And that really is a racer's worst enemy in a lot of ways. The anxieties and cramps, I would say. Because, lack of confidence is something that every racer goes through. It's just at varying degrees. But right now, you got to believe in yourself here. You've done a lot of work to be in this group. And guys like Barry there, Thomas Barry, he'll be confident, no question. It's going to be now. This is where that director sportif, and it's unique because most of them, Nathan, they don't have a national team director at this point. They're not on the national team yet. What they have is their tried and true director from their trade team. And I would think that those directors right now are telling their riders, just trust in you're going to be fine. You're not going to end up last in this group. So burn matches fighting for position that you don't need.
100%. There's no reason to be fighting for anything out there at this point besides not hitting that last point. So last place. There's a huge climb, and let's go. I'm going to speak a little bit to this now as far as the next course because they're going to be thinking. And this is something, the theme that's come up over and over again throughout each of the races yesterday. Is what are the riders reserving for what's to come? Because this really is about each of the qualifications. And being in the race number 2, Innsbruck Continental Hill Climb, one spot available at the top there, reserving every last bit of energy that you can for the opportunities you'll have ahead of you without being eliminated. That's going to be the whole goal here right now. So, are you all in for that hill climb? All right, we might see another Ollie Jones type situation happen, or what we saw yesterday with the breakaway of Christian Kolczynski as well. We may see that in the next race, but the rider who's going to do that, they really are going to be thinking, I need to reserve all I can. And then, again, we've got 3 total winners of sprints in the final race amongst 8 starters. That's a pretty high-pressure situation where you need a lot of energy for. So what you're reserving, these riders have done their homework, I would think, from the last races yesterday. and they're really going to be thinking, how much can I reserve to make those decisive moves rather than spreading out that energy across these races too much.
Yesterday, we saw some fantastic rides from the women. Vicky Whitelaw comes to mind for me, Nathan, and also Kristen Kolchinski at the end of the day yesterday, where in this event, she actually, and I think we can basically confirm it, rode this race trying to help her teammate advance, and they came really close with Marlise Mejias, the Cuban rider, on the Virginia Blue Ridge team. It was really admirable, I thought, what Kolchinski was doing, because then she just blew the next race to Ollie Jones right now, Nathan. Came back, picked up his teammate Han Yun, and tried to get him the win out of this group, and then knew that he'd be able to do it in Innsbruck. Not quite that dramatic. There was some to it. It was Ariel Verhaeren who ended up coming through and winning that sprint. So the only problem they had was they chose the one wrong rider from that group to have left for Marlise Mejias to have to dispatch. So it's been really interesting how that plays out. Now in this group again, just to talk about where we're at as they move into the finale. Ollie Jones is gone. Rule Mapul, well, I guess it'd be fair to say that translates loosely to let's roll hens. Well, the chicken has flown the coop, baby. This is Ollie Jones, the rooster, I would say. That's Matteo Jorgensen's nickname, the American on Movistar. Since he was a kid, he walks around with that kind of confidence. Well, Ollie Jones, I don't know if he walks around with the roosters-like confidence, but he certainly is ruling the roost out here today. This is one of the rides, Nathan, that I will remember from this Continental Qualifiers for a long, long time. Ollie Jones will be heading to Worlds after this climb. But again, he's going to have to manage things here, and part of the equivalent of flat tire in virtual racing would be a technical issue. A cat notoriously have been known to come along and step on laptops or somebody
And as Ali is making his way toward the final climb, keeping it steady here to 372 watts, as you can see, high, steady RPMs. And Mark O'Brien at the front of that pack, keeping it steady at 3.7. But I think the reality here for what Dave was just saying, I think Ali obviously just showing that he's got this dominance. He's definitely made this race interesting for us, as in ending it very early. So the tactics, he's removed them. It's essentially, they're completely gone from this race out here today. We saw very, very tactical racing throughout the day yesterday up until that decisive point. He just made the decisive point come in the first 3 kilometers instead of in the final.
Yesterday, Nathan, I was joking and calling Kristen Kolchinski the dream crusher. Well, Ollie Jones doesn't even let you dream. He's the Sandman. He just puts you to sleep out there. But this race was over 1 kilometer in, effectively, at least in Ollie Jones' mind, and in my mind too, because that was a decisive attack. Nathan, and you made the comment, I really respect your knowledge of these courses, and that was not the place where riders would typically attack this race. That definitely showed and a little bit of bravado. I think bravado would be the word of the day, to tell you the truth.
100% on that bravado there. Sam Hill now on a little bit of attack, and this is maybe just to secure himself as best as he possibly can to not be in that last place. I wonder if Sam is worried about how intensely these riders are going to take on that climb, because he pushes on up ahead. Nick Scolari here at the back, as you can see. But bravado, though, that is it. And, Dave, I think with Ollie and that attack that he made over the top there, it was pretty much the worst time you could possibly do so. The only other worst time would be with 100 meters, 200 meters to the line of that King of the Mountain. If he would have attacked there, he wouldn't have gotten the 15, 20 seconds that he needed, and then he would have been brought back. So it wasn't like he just threw all caution to the wind. It was a tactical moment to make that attack. He knew he had to get a massive gap from bottom to the top of that KOM, and by doing that, he could trust the 15 seconds or so that he had accumulated before he hit that downhill. If it would have been less than that, he may have actually reined it in, turned off the afterburners, and said, I'm just going to chill out and get into the pack and maybe fight for another time to punch my ticket. So Sam Hill, though, he doesn't want to risk a single thing. He wants to get out ahead of this, and he'll use up a little bit of energy to make sure he's not that last place rider amongst this pack.
Physiology question for you, Nathan. If this is the pace that you're comfortable climbing at, aren't you better at riding in your comfort zone than sitting back with the field here if you want to win the next race? So I'm already looking forward here. Now, is Sam Hill not burning matches, but rather priming the pump, if you will, getting ready for the next race? I think it's fair to say that this is not a waste of energy here. This is getting ready for the next race. He's doing an opener. Is that possible, Nathan, or am I off track?
For me, personally, Dave, man, maybe a little bit. He doesn't want to let the legs get too cold sitting around. There is a little bit of that. Once you get into that 4 watt per kilogram range, even in the A level, you are starting to get into some sugar burden that you could use later
I hear
on.
you.
The reality is if somebody sits at 2.5 to 3.5 for every single race, if they could, they're not going to be able to because of the Innsbruck Continental Hill
That
climb.
would be
But
ideal.
if they could, they'd just be fresher. They would just be fresher. Yeah, the moment you get into that 4, you do start burning some things that you could use later on. But Sam, I think he's just securing something here because look, Dave, at 306, 307 back rather than 316 back, they've got almost 10 seconds here. This is going to make it so they don't actually have to sprint to the line, perhaps, as I'm not sure that anyone's going to chase them down.
Yeah, this is a backstop, as they say, a little bit of a safety for them, Nathan. That 10 seconds means exactly what you said. They can ride at this pace, and it's much better for Sam Hill to have 4 or 5 guys want to come and participate. Right now, it's like the Tom Sawyer painting the fence. He's trying to get other people to help him paint it right now and just kind of all work together out here and get into the next race and have another throwdown. You got to remember
Sam's
there's riders
going
like
backwards,
Thomas.
interesting enough. He's not hanging with this group, actually, which kind of puts a nail in the coffin of that plan here a little bit. Interesting.
Well,
we'll see what ends up playing out here with them.
I mean, as much as I hate to admit it, Nathan, I think it's saying that you were right, actually, that it wasn't worth it for him to continue going that hard. He realized that he wanted to sit back in a little bit more of a zone 2-3 situation there. And I think that's exactly what he did. So good call.
Yeah, 100%. Now, looking at the time gaps here at this point, it does look like to me most of the riders here that are in this main pack are going to be making their way through. There's a pretty big gap, I believe, back to 15th, 16th, and 17th place. And I think most of the riders have secured their spot here. They don't actually have to fight for a whole lot, I don't believe, with the number of riders, 15 riders going through. But we had some double checks on this from production to figure out what's actually happening with this. I believe one of our riders has withdrawn from the race, so it might be everyone that may be getting through as long as they finish things up here.
We'll get a confirmation on that, but I certainly would think that would be the case. One thing that Ollie Jones has made very clear is that he's going to claim world spot number 1 out here. There's another guaranteed spot to the winner in Innsbruck, and then things get really interesting with our reverse elimination. With the final, it's 6 total spots that were awarded. Excuse me, 5 total spots. So there'll be 3 spots awarded in the Bell Lap Crit City course. But this is definitive now. 180 meters to go. Ollie Jones will be headed to Worlds. So New Zealand adding 1 to their team. One of the top riders on the planet, putting on a clinic here today on Rule Mapuru.
Got to really create a whole lot of confidence for New Zealand with that kind of a ride-away effort here from Ollie Jones. Great to see. And we've seen him also do it recently in the Zwift Grand Prix. Ollie Jones, obviously on a massive amount of form. What is the training that this man is up to here to put out that kind of wattage, that kind of power? Calm and cool, as you can see, collected, and says, all right, I punched my ticket. Now to get on to training for the World Championships to try and be crowned the champion of the world in the world of esports and cycling. Absolutely awesome to see. Tab Long now making a little bit of a move, I believe it is. Great to see Adil Tab Long just stomping on the pedals and saying, look, I know it's not going to be necessarily worth a whole lot when it comes to my punching a ticket, but I'm going to show you I still got some strength in the legs just to maybe scare everybody a little bit at 5.2 steady at the front.
Yeah, nice way to make your mark out here, certainly. And we talked about the fact that even if you don't win, you're certainly showcasing your abilities today for national team selectors. As Ollie Jones, Nathan, looked as calm, cool, and collected as someone. He finished 3 minutes ahead of the field here today, and he looks like a guy that just showed up outside the Rafa shop ready for the coffee ride. I mean, that's an impressive performance out here.
Yeah, it definitely is. Now 2 riders up front, as you can see here, just looking to finish up across the line here. Everybody around that 3 minutes back, 4 minutes back from Ollie Jones. We do have a couple of riders that just need to finish up that are off the back of this pack. It looks like Sam Hill, Tristan Harding, and those are going to be our 2 riders that are still going to be waiting to get our 15 across the line. All the riders need to do at this point is finish up within the time before the next event starts. We did have one rider scratch from the race, and so our H. Gisep riding out from Arrow here from Korea did scratch from the race, so we will have 15 moving their way through here to the next race. They just need to get across that line.
The turnaround is relatively quick here. Obviously, Ollie Jones doesn't need to worry about that, but it's a little over 10 minutes, between 10 and 15 minutes until the next race starts here. So we've talked about the strategy for staying warm. Here, you don't want to let the engine completely shut down. No real reason to sprint here, guys.
Here. No,
Yeah.
and that's the thing is what I want to say with this is sprinting here, those riders behind that backed off. Yeah, race is going to race. Good on them, and they're showing a little bit of show here, and perhaps that is for something more, to the rest of the world to say what they can do. But there's also the reality that those efforts right there, and I was going to say this earlier before we went back up to Ollie Jones, about how these riders are playing this when they were going a little bit ahead of the pack to try and maybe make sure they weren't that last rider until it was realized, I think, that, look, everyone's going to make it through as long as you finish. Not having to do those efforts into 8, 9, 10 watts per kilogram, those are very special efforts that the body only has so many of within a given day. You can't repeat that and repeat that and repeat that at the same power no matter who you are. There's just so many that you actually have. And so reserving those powers and going, as you were saying, into that steady 4 to 5, getting that gap and going to steady 4 to 5 and not sacrificing a 9, 10, 11 watt per kilogram effort is actually worth a whole lot when it comes to how these racers need to secure their spots later on in the day.
Yeah, they can slow burn all day long, Nathan. It's just when you hit the blowtorch like that, using the turbo. The best analogy has been used in cycling for a long, long time. Burning matches, right? They burnt a match there that they didn't really need to burn. But maybe they've got more in their match book than we know. But all of these guys will be advancing, including Squilly the Kid, as they roll through. That does look like the entire Aero team rolling by there. So these places have all been confirmed. Thomas Berry out of New Zealand will punch his ticket.
Kyle Marwood also out there. One rider I failed to mention earlier, participating out here today out of Australia. Here's Torben Partridge Madsen. Paul Oden's behind him, rolling on in.